Morning. My name's Melissa Moeller, and I am a grant writer with NABC. I am really excited to talk to you today about the Value Added Producer Grant. In my mind, this is the best program out there for farmers to bring money directly to farmers, ranchers, fishers, and harvesters. A little bit about myself. Whoops. I started and ran Misty Meadows Farm for 16 years. And in the time of running the farm, I discovered the Value Added Producer Grant. I wrote and won three grants for my own farm back to back over a 9 year period. And by the time I finished that, I realized what I really loved was helping other producers access this program and access other grant money. And so I sold my farm to a neighboring farm, and now I work full time helping farmers access capital. So as we get started, I would love it if you could, in the chat, introduce yourself, tell us who you are, name of your farm, what it is you grow, what you're hoping to get out of today. Emily and I will be monitoring the chat as the presentations go on so that when we get to the question and answer time, we can answer your questions the best that we can. So we're very blessed today to have Jeff Peterson and Lucas Moser here from Rural Development. USDA Rural Development is the agency that administrates the Value Added Producer Grant, and they are going to tell us all about it. So Jeff and Lucas, take it away.
Good morning. All right. I am going to turn my camera off so I can talk to y'all, and you don't have to look at the side of my head. I need the big monitor here. So here we go. Let's let her rip. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Emily. Really a pleasure today to get the chance to talk to you folks early before you, as you're kind of thinking about going through this process. Value-added producer grants are really a nice kind of an opportunity for folks that love to farm, want to do it for a living, and make enough money to take care of their family and just persevere in what they do. So we're going to talk about that today. I'm with USDA Rural Development. As Melissa said, we administer this program. The purpose of these grants are to help agricultural producers, I would guess, much like yourself, to add value to their projects, their products, that commodity that you grow out there, whether that's those beautiful tomatoes or it's milk cows, whatever it is. This is very well could be a program that could kind of help you get over the hump, and maybe you want to expand markets. You're selling to a handful of people now, and you want to sell to a lot more. That's what this is about. And at the end of the day, we, our mission is to strengthen rural communities and economies. So this is a good fit for our agency. A couple different ways to do this. Planning grants, working capital grants. These are two different options. Planning grants are smaller, $75,000. Generally, these are for the folks that are trying to kind of figure out if this makes sense. They have an idea. This is an opportunity for folks like yourselves to maybe get some help from a third party, do some feasibility, somebody objective, ideally. I know you think it might be a great idea. Let's get somebody else to look at it, help you quantify it, make a picture of where it might go. So up to $75,000 for that. We don't see a lot of these, but oftentimes it might be a stepping stone to that working capital grant. Those can be much larger, up to $250,000. They're going to pay for much more than a study. Operational expenses that you might incur to add value to your product. We'll go over what those might look like, give you some examples. Don't look at this like it's a way to buy a tractor or something that helps you produce that commodity. Bear in mind, this is for taking that raw commodity to the next level or marketing it elsewhere. There is a matching component. Don't let that scare you. It's one-to-one match. I think you'll be surprised if you haven't heard already. There's some great ways to meet that aren't going to hurt you as much financially as you think they might. Next slide. So let's talk about eligibility. We on to the next slide. There we go. So most of our folks are what we would call fall into that first type, agricultural producers. There are some other groups here, agricultural producer groups, farm and ranch cooperatives, and there's one majority controlled producer-based business. That's a mouthful. Most folks are going to fit under number one, but there might be some of you out there as we go through this, you may say, gosh, I'm a member of one of these other types of groups. I would say if that's the case, come and approach us. Me, Melissa, Lucas, those of us that work in the program, and we can kind of talk through that. There's certain ways that requirements that have you fit into those, and we'll want to kind of vet those out probably outside this forum today, though, and we're going to really have more focus on those of you that are the agricultural producers. Okay, so the agricultural producers, you need to be a for-profit business, and you're producing an agricultural commodity, and you need to be involved in it. That participation is fairly simple, involving labor management, field operations. That first bullet's probably the most important thing to think about. You might be an entity, say you're you and a partner or a spouse, whatever the case may be. You need to be, everybody involved in that needs to be qualified as an agricultural producer. There are harvesters and fishers that also fit into this. So you're hearing agricultural producer, you're thinking, how do I fit into that as a fisher or a timber harvester? It's possible to do that as well. And we do see some of those projects, people that fish commercially, and maybe they're turning into smoked salmon or something like that. But the majority of the applications that we see, probably 99%, I don't know what the statistics are, but are going to fall into this first category. Again, some of these other types of qualifying applicants, ag producer group. You can kind of read through what it says there. I think one of the best way to look at it is just over on that right side. Those are some examples that might fit into that. National Corn Producer or Corn Growers Association, Washington Potatoes, Dairy Council. I don't know if we've actually had applicants from those groups. Melissa, maybe you can speak to that, but I haven't processed one for those groups. But again, you might say to yourself, I'm a member of something similar to that. Come talk to us afterwards, and we can see if that might be a fit for an organization that you're involved with. Another example here, and the names you see below there that fall into that farm, ranch, or co-ops are very well might be familiar to you. I know I've heard of all of these, and we have had applicants in these groups before. Puget Sound Food Hub, North Cascade Meats, South Washington Food Hubs. They've done some things with us. And again, if you're involved in those organizations, not maybe just as a farmer, but maybe you're close to to the operation and part of the spokes and wheel of that, and you're thinking as we go through this presentation that there might be an opportunity for your group, seek us out. Okay. This one we get more obscure as we go along here. I mean, I'm going to let you read through that, but we don't see many of these. Have on occasion, even in talking to our national folks, they don't see many of these. But if you feel like if any of that rings true to a business venture that you may be involved in, seek us out. Okay. All right, here we go. Applicant eligibility. Currently produce and provide more than 50% of the raw commodity that will be used for the value-added product. I don't want to get in front of you and I'll probably do more of this, but and read you definitions, but this is one to pay attention to. So if you do have a commodity and you're turning it into something, we're going to require that the majority of whatever this value-added product you're making is coming from that. Now, let me rephrase that. The commodity, you got to produce the majority of that to make your value-added product. I'm just going to give you an example. If you're making salsa, and of course I'm going to go back to tomatoes because that's what I grow. And salsa probably requires tomatoes. You need to, even though there's other stuff in there, there's jalapeno peppers and garlic or whatever you put in your salsa. But if your product is salsa, you get one of those ingredients, and I'm going to go back to those tomatoes. If you grow more than 50% of the whatever is required to make that salsa, you grow more than the 50% of those tomatoes, you're going to qualify there. You've got an ingredient that you grow more than 50% of, and there you're fine. So it may be a minor part of that. Maybe you don't have very hot salsa, but you put a little jalapeno in there. Well, whatever it takes to make that salsa, if you grow more than half the jalapenos to make that salsa, then you're going to fall in. You're going to be eligible there. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Next slide. All right. So here we go. You got to add value to the commodity. That's the name of the grant, the value added producer grant. So one of 5 methods is going to have to qualify there. That's a big deal. Second part of this we look at, you got to grow your customer base. That's going to vary from grant to grant. Some are very large and substantial. Some of it is more just kind of an incremental growth. And at the end of the day, you need to show an increase in revenue that we can attribute to adding value to that product. Those are really the pillars that you're going to have to substantiate in this application. Okay. So here's the methods. I think most of us, when we think of adding value to it, physical state change is one of those that seems kind of the obvious one. There are more. We just need to pick one of these. The physical state change, like I say, is probably the most common, but also locally produced, marketed, and distributed. You're selling it locally and marketing locally. There's enhanced production methods. I'm going to go into these as we go along. More obscure ones, product segregation and renewable energy is, if there's somebody out there that fits that. We don't see many of those, but that's an option too. So let's talk about each one of those. Next slide. So physical state change. This is kind of not being able to put the genie back in the bottle. It's an irreversible process that alters the commodity and enhances value. Some good examples down there that are pretty intuitive. Milk into cheese, wool into clothing, livestock into packaged meat. If you look at that and just very logically, you can't turn cheese back into milk. You can't put the wool back on the sheep after you've made a sweater out of it. And certainly packaged meat, once it's there, it does not come back to life. So it's irreversible, very common. This is a lot of people, I think, that maybe they discount the fact that they could even qualify for this because they think I don't really do anything to change it. Let's talk about the next one, and we can look at some alternatives. Well, we've got a picture. This is a good picture. I love this picture. I don't know, and maybe I know Mike is out there. I don't know if this picture shows some apples and some examples of where people have changed that physical state. And I recognize at least a couple of those that kind of came through our program. Are all of those ours? Do you know that? Are those projects that we've actually had? I know that middle one is.
Yeah, that's the only one I know for sure. Oh,
Yeah.
Micah says, yes, they all are.
Oh, there she is. Thank you,
Yeah.
Micah. I kind of thought so, but I didn't work on all these. But isn't that cool? I mean, that look at those. It just I don't know. It really kind of brings it all together when you look at a picture like that. And this grant program that we have is a great vehicle to kind of get you started on that. Thanks, Micah. All right, let's move on to the next method 2. A lot of folks do that because this is what people a lot of the people that participate in our program, this is what they want to do anyway. They want to they're growing it, down the street. They want to take it to Pike's Place or something. They want to take it to a farmer's market. Their product, and honestly, and when I think about this, I think about where it says must show evidence increase in revenues versus normal sales method. I think what we think about there is what is a normal sales method? If you're on the east side of the mountains and I don't know, you're growing apples. Let's go back to the apples. And I worked in Yakima a long time, and those guys would pick those apples and they'd go off to a warehouse somewhere, and someone else is in the marketing. This is putting that marketing leverage. It's turning it back to you. This is a way for you to take that product and not shipping it off to somebody else, doing something with it that it comes in a variety of forms. But you marketing it, you're taking control of that. At the end of the day, it produces more revenue, and this is why this program is so important. And honestly, this local production, it adds value. People want to, when they go to a high dollar restaurant, whether it be out on the coast somewhere or in Spokane or somewhere, and when they're adding that, special apple stuff that we had on the other to their specialty drink, whatever it is, it's local beef, it's something like that. They'll pay more for it, and y'all know that because you've probably paid for it before because you like where it came from, and this is a great vehicle, that local marketing angle to take with your value added. A lot of folks do this. So like I say, you don't have to turn milk into cheese necessarily. That's a great project too, but just doing it locally is a spin you could put on this thing and run with. Okay. Enhanced production. This is common too, and a lot of folks may be doing this already. The example that I think of is organic. You're growing it differently, your commodity, than say the more traditional kind of methods out there. Free range, pasture raised. These examples Those last three bullets there would probably apply to more so to livestock. They could all apply to livestock. But this is pretty common too. Maybe you're incurring some expense. Maybe it costs a little more for you to produce this kind of commodity. But at the end of the day, the way that you're producing that commodity can translate to a premium price. And y'all know that. If you go to the grocery store and just go to the milk section there and you look at uh, you know, $3 milk that is non-organic, and you go, a couple steps down and get into the organic stuff, it sells for more. So this is a common method too. Don't see it everywhere, but all the time. But a lot of folks choose to go this route too. All right, method 4. Don't see many of these. Product segregation. Example: GMO corn, non-GMO corn. I haven't processed one of these, but if that's a fit for you too, I guess what I'd think about, you only got to pick one of these as I'm going along right here, and if it's more readily, kind of fits into one of those other boxes we've all talked about, and it's clear and obvious, pick the one that is really the best fit. And a lot of times 1, 2, and 3 kind of hit before we start getting into some of these more obscure ones. Let's look at 5. Renewable energy. Not quite sure. We were talking about this yesterday. Um, this is kind of an odd fellow here in a value-added producer grant, because most of it is, we're talking about uh, other types of commodities, but there are it is part of the program. An example would be manure into methane versus via digester, corn into biodiesel. They might do some of these more perhaps in the Midwest. Maybe it's a thing. I would tell you this, though: we also have other programs, Rural Energy for America program, or otherwise known as REAP. There too, we have some other grant programs that are really really a great fit there too. So if you're if this got your attention, catch us outside of this forum and let's talk about REAP and see if there's some opportunities for you there. And we're happy to talk to you about that. See if something will get you where you want to go, maybe perhaps for a different vehicle. Okay. All right, just a reminder again, those are the 5 methods that we add value. The first 3 are probably the most common. Pick one that fits best. Talk to us beforehand if that, you're trying to figure out what makes more sense for you, and we can help you kind of figure that out. All right. Okay, product requirements. You need to show value added to the commodity using one of those 5 methods. Again, this is the reminder slides. Show an increase in customer base in the application, and you got to make more money doing this value added product. You got to quantify it, both in customer base. And those are the things we're going to help you with and talk about more today, how you tell your story here. Okay, application types. Again, planning grants. And then we have the working capital grants, which most of you probably might fall into that, but we do get a few planning grants. Within that working capital grant category, 3 different types that we see. And kind of where you're at is gonna, and kind of how big your project is, probably gonna drive which one of these 3 you fall into. Simplified applications is one we'll talk about, and market expansion in emerging markets are the 2 others that we'll talk about. And so let's move forward and get to those. Again, planning grants, $75,000. Funds for the development, economic planning activities to determine the viability of the potential value-added venture. That's a lot of word salad there that you could get the feeling that I was having trouble even talking through that. It is kind of what it sounds like. You have an idea. It's really a way to formulate kind of that plan and look at, is this going to work? Does it make sense? What kind of opportunity do we have there, both in customer base and revenues, and kind of that, how are we going to get there? This is getting some money to help you kind of draw a better picture of your vision. Maybe you take it further after this, and in another year you put together a working capital grant. It's a great opportunity, fairly short-lived, in that's going to be completed within a year. But just a super opportunity there if you're kind of in the early stages. Don't count this one out. Okay.
Oh, just to add one thing on the planning grant, the one caveat to this is the product needs to be planted. So these studies can't be used to kind of see if you can grow a certain crop. It needs to have at least been grown for a little bit before we can do a planning grant.
Yep, that's a great point. All right. Simplified applications. We refer to these are the little guys. And these are great. We see a lot of these. You may not need, just because all that money's there up to 250,000, that doesn't mean that that's necessarily a good fit for what you want to do, or you need to go that far, or have that kind of expense involved. All four applicant types that we discussed previously can apply for this. There's no requirement for a feasibility study or a business plan. You can have those. I think those are great, but they're not required. It just kind of for the smaller grant, there's a little bit less expected of it. You're still going to kind of go through a lot of it anyway. I mean, the major difference there is really not requiring that feasibility study of the business plan. You're still going to have to kind of to kind of explain, because this is scored. You're going to have to tell your story in terms of what you're going to do to increase your customer base and revenue. But again, it's a little less strenuous, but really a great opportunity, particularly if we're not talking large quantities of sales and your needs may not be as extensive as others. We see a lot of these, and it's definitely okay to put in the time. It's well worth it for these. I think something to think about. You may move along down the road. Melissa talked about her 3 grants. I don't know if she started with a little guy there. But sometimes that's what we see. You see more opportunities as you get going, and so this is a good foot in the door. It gives you some experience in what this grant can do for you. Okay. Next. All right. Emerging markets. I think the takeaway from this, there's 2 major ideas that I think about an emerging market. I think the first that I think of is that you have been producing and marketing this value-added product for less than 2 years. So you have to have been not just producing the commodity, but actually marketing this value-added product. But because you haven't been doing it a long time, they also include a requirement here that you do have that third-party feasibility study. Just because you don't have the time to really demonstrate that, there's that additional requirement that kind of helps hold up and support the notion of potentially receiving a grant up to 250,000. There's kind of that added element there. So here's one. I don't think we see a lot of these, Melissa. I don't know how many you see of these every year. I think in most cases, most folks have been already doing it for a couple of years, feel comfortable and are kind of ready to take that next step. And that's the next one we move on to when we talk about the market expansion projects. If you could go to the next slide. This is what most of the folks we see, and I don't know, I'm sure we'll get an idea when we get out and talk to folks that are in the room here and listening to this, how many, what y'all are doing. I always like to look at what folks are doing. Are we going to have something here, Melissa? And I'm not asking for it yet, where we go around the room. I think you talked about it, or people just kind of writing in the margins and talking about that, because I always want to know what y'all are doing out there.
Yeah, right at the beginning, I asked if people could put in the chat who they are and what they're growing, and so just a reminder to do that
Yeah,
so that we can see who you are and what you're thinking of using this program for.
right. So yeah, I want to be able to relate it to actual agricultural producers out there, but most folks fit into this. They've been making that, going back to the example of somebody making cheese. They have a small dairy herd. They're making cheese. They've developed it pretty well. They've been doing it, 2.5 years, 3 years, but they want to get bigger. They want more people to try that cheese. So they found the value added producer grant, and it's a great kind of during that transition can be tough. I spent a lot of years in ag lending, so I worked with a lot of small farmers. Some of you may have worked with me before, but that transition, and from selling to a few and getting your product out there, especially where you're adding value to it, can be expensive. And this is really that opportunity for you to kind of give you that boost and get you to that next level. And market expansion is really what we're talking about. And just to note there, business plan or a marketing plan, we're going to go into what those mean here in just a minute. You're going to have either one of those in your application, but no feasibility study. And so that's kind of an important distinction from that slide we had prior that talked about you being an emerging market that had not done it for 2 years yet. Next. So I don't think we had this slide in there. We kind of slipped this one in on you, Melissa. But I think it's important because that where we in that previous slide we said, okay, you've got a working capital market expansion project. You need a marketing plan or a business plan. Just if we're just going to count the words in each one of those, you can tell in the content there's a lot more involved in meeting the definition of a business plan versus a marketing plan. I'm not going to tell you which one to do. I could just tell you one is more involved than the other. I think any way you look at it, when you put this application, everything that's in a business plan is going to be somewhere in your application anyway. But at the end of the day, you're applying for a grant, and grants can get very technical. Some of the scoring gets out of our hands, and if you're asked to put together a business plan and a government employee is evaluating this, they might be looking at the definition and make sure that you have everything in there. So the content of a business plan is more extensive than is a marketing plan. So you're going to have to do one or the other. Consider that, and that's entirely up to you. A business plan may tell your story in more detail, so it may behoove you to do that. But that is an option to you. As you go through the application portal, you're going to see it's going to make sense. This is what, and it's going to kind of drive you in one or two of these directions. Melissa is a partner of ours. She may be helping you with your grant. She, in whatever capacity, we're all there to help you. And we can direct you through this if you talk to us early enough. So this is one of those application details that probably worth some discussion in the early stages as you consider this. Okay. How can we use this money? All right. Planning grants, pretty simple. Feasibility studies, business and marketing plans. We've kind of been over that. The working capital, this is a big deal because what is this going to do for you? How can you need to kind of get it in your brain? How's this going to help me? What kinds of things am I going to be paying for that I could potentially be reimbursed for? So in this, and I think we get more in detail in the future slides, but in kind of a nutshell, we're talking about operational expenses for value-added processing, marketing, and distribution. And that second bullet, please read this frontwards, backwards, cannot cover production expenses or equipment. We're not going to buy you a tractor. We're not going to pay for, somebody that goes out there and pulls weeds in between the crop out there. So make that distinction. You'll hear us talk about it. Is it post-harvest? Is it production? Has to be post-harvest. It's beyond that genie in the bottle thing where we can't turn the clock back on it. And again, for both of these grants, it's going to be a 1-to-1 match. So, and we'll get in more detail here. Some good examples that we talk about are eligible expenses in working capital. I can't stress enough. Please, 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 please make sure everything. If you have questions about the eligibility of it, then talk to us beforehand. If you get too many expenses that are ineligible in an application, it won't even get scored. It'll be considered ineligible because you've asked us to. I've had people ask to put in a septic system, or put a roof on something. They're just or they ask us to cover production labor for somebody to apply fertilizer. Fertilizer is not applied post-harvest. So when I see fertilizer application, not something that's going to work. Think about this: processing costs, labor, utilities, ingredients, packaging. Those are all pretty intuitive. Get a few cases where maybe they don't produce enough of those tomatoes for the salsa and they have to buy a few to kind of supplement all this added production. Still need to do at least 50%, but maybe you need a little bit more just because you don't have the capacity to maybe grow that ingredient in that example. Advertising, promotion, be careful with promotion. I will say this. Make sure it is really, I almost don't like that slide, Melissa. I almost like to call that marketing, because promotion can get into another area that isn't eligible. If you've bought little, I don't know, fancy hats or something to give away at a table, maybe all they have on it is an apple or something. There may be some connection to your value added product, but we have to be very careful there that it's not just kind of that giveaway thing. And it's not really, we like to say, does this kind of educate people on your value added product? If you are using it, does it tell about specifically the value added product? Sometimes people, you're proud of your farm, and you grow 15 different things, but only 5 of those are part of your project. So make sure when you're thinking about kind of that marketing thing, we want you to keep your eye on the prize there and have that marketing be directed towards your value added project. project overhead, those kinds of things are also eligible. Be careful there, because a lot of the bookkeeping, office supplies, some of that spills over into the you might be using that same bookkeeper to pay for your farm employees, the doing their payroll. Just be careful when you get into overhead. Again, eye on the prize. You gotta make sure that it lines up with only that part you're asking for is lined up just with the additional, the value added product, and expansion that is attributed to that, the growth, and not kind of other parts of your farm. So, and I think Melissa will talk about that a little bit more in her part, where you kind of pick what is this, what is that commodity we're going to go with, because you may apply for something down the road. Not going to get into that, but distribution, shipping, delivery, that one's pretty easy. Keep in mind here, you may grow a bunch of different products. We want to have the delivery costs kind of lined up with the project that you're adding value to. But that's definitely, you got to get that product to market. You've in your little barn, you've taken that salad mix, you put it in a clamshell. Now you got to get it to the farmer's market. We can help pay for, pay a mileage rate or something to help you get to that market. And so that's pretty common. We see a lot of folks do that. Okay. All right. Food safety this is something that came up last year. I think that it's still kind of a thing. As I kind of look at this, Melissa, I look at that last bullet. I'm assuming this will kind of stay in place. If you have something that fits into this kind of the food safety part of it, maybe it's something that sanitizes or rinses your salad, or whatever. Talk to us about how that fits in there. There are kind of thresholds within the overall grant structure, not just VAPG, that allows us to look at something as more of a supply item rather than equipment. So just be careful with those as we go through. There's kind of some funky stuff in the grant world that when we start getting to what's a supply and what's equipment, kind of the longevity of that, is this more of a capital asset? There's different stuff there. If you've got a few of those, maybe we can kind of work with them. I think an example is like a laptop or something. We see a lot of folks that they kind of need that laptop or something to take to market so they can, have it organize their inventory or whatever it is. That's a common one. Those are more kind of the common things we see that might be more of a supply item that in your mind you say, well, that's maybe equipment. Those smaller things we can deal with as part of the supply budget. Okay, and here's the no-nos. No construction equipment. We can't buy that delivery vehicle for you. We can help you rent it, as long as it's not rent to own. But we can, help with that kind of stuff. Just, I think when you look at these, if you keep that in mind, we're not building something. We're not buying that long-term capital asset, with some minor exceptions. If you have something, we'll talk about those. We already said before, no production. Don't even talk about it in your application. I laugh about that. It's like I don't want to see the word production. In the world of chat GPT or whatever all the kids are doing. I knew that make you smile, Lucas. I'm the old guy here. But they're going to be looking for that kind of stuff in an application when they score it. Engineering and architectural design, can't do that. This is not a research, a research grant for working capital. We don't want to see that kind of stuff there. If you're wanting to do something similar to that, maybe that falls into a planning grant. But those are not working capital items we can work with. Conflict of interest, that's always going to be an issue across any grant world. If you've got you know, your brother next door that's going to let you uh, you know, give you a real good rate on renting the building as a processing facility. You know, that's kind of an example of conflict of interest. We're not paying you to do what you do. We can give you some in-kind credit. But conflict of interest is really one of those, you know, we'll have a long-winded definition that's going to come up here shortly. But and to the end of the day, if it feels like you know, maybe there's not kind of that arm's length transaction, if it's not, if there might be the potential somebody could look at that as a conflict of interest, the chances are there probably is one there. We can talk through something if you say, hey, this is an example, I kind of know this guy and he knows another guy, and we're going to have this kind of arrangement. Let's talk through those things so we don't have a problem later on. Okay. All right, there's the example I spoke of. I'm gonna I'll let y'all kind of look at that. I know you'll have access to the slides, but a lot of times it comes into you know, we talked about family members, any organizational conflicts, those kinds of things that that might fall into that category are going to be we're going to have to strike those from the eligible expenses. If you got too much of those in your application, it's going to be, not only are they ineligible expenses, but your application may not, us looking at it may not go any further. So, you know, talk through those things. If you have a question about it, we'll figure out what we got. All right. Next, matching funds. This is the beautiful thing. This is what people don't realize. This is what I get all fired up about. The matching part of it. You think you can match with cash. You can bring some money into that to match the reimbursement. But the beauty of all of this is that commodity that you're already growing, we can utilize that. The same commodity that you are adding value to, we are going to allow that as match. It can be all of your match. We can even, and this is where it just, you know, it's a little bit mind blowing. The work that you do on your project, up to a certain point, no more than 25% of the whole project, or I guess half the match, can even come from the value of your own labor. So there's different ways to meet this. If you've been applying for other grants and they say, gosh, how am I going to come up with, you know, $250,000 to match this? You don't have to. There's different ways to meet that, and it's probably already there. It needs to be available to you kind of as you go. If we're going to reimburse, you have to have had the commodity or put in some time or have that match. So that's why we say spent in advance of the draw request. If somebody comes to me and say, hey, I've spent 50,000 on labor for this, but I can show you I have 50,000 in raw commodity that I've already kind of entered into the program. Conflict of interest still applies to this. I think you're going to be able to you're going to have to tell your story in the application process. You know, you're going to have to figure out what that value of your commodity is, what the value of your labor is up front. When you got to have all that figured out, you're going to have to confirm it. If your grant is awarded, we're going to come back to you and say, show me the money. And that means you're going to bring a bank statement, you know, or justify why am I, you know, the U.S. labor survey says that, and you'll say this in your grant application too, but the survey says that farm managers are worth $38 an hour, whatever. It's actually a lot. It's probably a lot more than that. I just threw that out there, but you just have to justify what that match is. So once we get that grant going, we can look at that and say, yep, they've got the match there, and then we're on our way. Next. So again, I talked about that just kind of here's some different forms. Applicant cash, there's some scoring. There's some reasons to throw a little bit of cash in there. I'll let you figure that out on the scoring end. when we get into that, you can make that decision. Most people have got that value of their raw agricultural commodity. That's a value of that before you add value to it. It's in its very simple raw commodity state. That little picture that we had earlier of the apples, and then you know, we're looking at what those apples were worth right post harvest. So you know, that might be, you know, again talking about the apples on the other side, what were those worth? I made loans in Yakima for a long time, and apples were worth $4 a loose box. You know, that's an example of what, you know, that raw commodity might be worth for somebody doing that kind of project. That was Red Delicious 20 years ago, but that's probably changed. But that's kind of the way you think about it. What would that product in its raw state be? So you're not getting top dollar for value, but you know, when you can piece together some of your labor, the value of that, the raw value of that commodity, you're going to get to that 50%, and we can help talk you through that too. Might take a little bit of work and research, but you can put that together. Sometimes we see a lot of times we see family members, you know, that are part of it. We can give them some credit for their time that they work on it. They may not be paying themselves a wage, literally. I wish they would, but you can formulate a value for it nonetheless. That's what we're talking about in-kind labor. Sometimes it comes from, you know, the rich uncle, whatever it is, third-party cash, third-party in-kind contribution. I've seen that. That can happen too. So, but again, I think I spoke in the previous slide, no more than 25% of that in-kind labor, that would be your labor, or your maybe one of your kids, somebody related, no more than 25% of that, you know, as relative to the project costs can be from that in-kind labor. Okay. All right. We're about there. Are we doing okay on time, Miss Melissa? Okay. Thumbs up. All right. You know, a lot of this really, it changed. I'm not going to get into this a whole lot because you have this portal you'll go to, you'll apply, and it's going to walk you through all this. I think you probably, the first time you sit down, it's going to be probably a lesson in what your homework is, and what you're going to have to put together. There's a lot there, and you know, we can help you through it to some extent. A lot of it is just going to be kind of clicking through drop downs and that sort of thing, and you're going to get to parts of this that where you're going to have to fill in boxes with content. So I don't know what it looks like when a person goes through this, but I got to imagine you've got to you know, maybe something else, your computer where you're cutting and pasting things in there, kind of off and on a lot. But these are really, we talk about some of the things that go into this. That work plan and budget is kind of the biggie. That's really where you know, where the rubber meets the road in terms of especially that communicate. If you get the grant, this is what we're going to be talking about. This is what is happening throughout the grant. You're going to be hiring somebody to put together a marketing campaign. You know, who are you talking to about that? We're gonna have XYZ company do this. You might go out and get a bid and say we want to increase our customer base, and you have like a consultant help you with that. That would be a contractual kind of thing. I need somebody, one of my employees, to help put lettuce in clamshells. That's a processing kind of thing. Again, we want this to be geared to the value added product that you've chosen, but these are, this is your explanation, both in function. You're gonna have somebody put, you know, this in a clamshell, and two, what does that cost? That's a rate. It's a wage that you're gonna pay these folks. So I think that this is really a lot of, you know, penciling things out and figure this out. How long is it going to take you? That time time frame for the task? Who's in charge of it? Those are the kinds of things that, as you go through the drop downs, they want to know who, who are the critical players in this thing, and finally, where's that funding going to come from? Am I going to pay for this through the grant, or is this portion of it going to be, that paid for by the cash that I'm going to pour into it, the rich uncle, or just in-kind commodity? So that's a big part of it. There's a lot, as you'll see in the scoring, that comes down to that work plan and budget. But at the end of the day, this is really an important tool. If you do get that grant, we're going to talk about this part a lot, but that's only part of it. So, but having somebody like Melissa or us, we can help you, talk you through this stuff. A lot of it's on you. You're going to have. We don't know what you do. We can help kind of guide you through this, but if you've been doing this for a couple years, you probably know what it costs to have somebody, work for you, doing the processing activities, processing chicken or whatever you might be doing out there. Some of this is going to have to come from you and looking at your own records, your tax records, whatever. But the better you do with this, the better you support this, the better you're going to score. You got to tell your story here so we can kind of pass this a straight face test when somebody's looking at this and make sure they're eligible expenses. Okay. Eligibility miscellaneous, grant period is 12 months for a planning grant. So we can go up to 3 years on a working capital grant. And I generally recommend you use all of that. But a lot of times folks like to go 2 years, and that's good too. We have that extra year in our back pocket. Usually we end up using it. Best laid plans, it didn't quite get there in 24 months. You still have, things to do, places to grow, whatever. And then so we do that. We add that extra year, but can only do that once. So think about that as you do it. Application completeness, this portal is going to help you do that. It used to be you'd turn in a bunch of paper and we'd find something sadly was missing. So bear that in mind. You can only have one active grant at a time. So if you have something else going and you're listening to me today, you better get that wrapped up. If it's not, be thinking about that. You don't have to wrap it up today, but if this grant cycle happens next spring, move that other one along. If you're applying for a subsequent grant, make sure it's different products, different markets, not just doing the same thing over, as we will not be able to do that. If you have questions about that, talk to us before you kind of go down any of those paths. We see it a lot because it's a good thing. Okay. Project timeline. I'm going to let Melissa go into this partly because my voice is about to go.
Sure.
Yeah. I can talk about it now. I'm going to talk more about it later, but I'm going to be brief here, Melissa. And we'll talk about that application process. She's going to get more into this SAM registration. It's kind of a big deal. She's going to talk to you about the online portal and the rural development review. Before you actually hit the final button, these are things that need to happen. But this is kind of the basic timeline. And then we have that's interesting, the scoring in a blog audio and after it. That's kind of the second stage of this. Sorry, it just struck me as funny. Once you get that thing in, and this is where you got to kind of put on your patient hat. We're going to take a while it goes through a process. We're looking at eligibility, making sure application's complete, all that good stuff. And then it goes on to be scored by someone else. And that could be us. It could be somebody that the agency has hired that used to work for the agency. But but somebody in the agency is going to score that. It may be a number of folks. That's changed over the years, so I can't really speak to what they'll do next year in the next competition. But that's where it kind of is out of your hands, and you just have to be patient and pester us, or you can check in every now and then, and we'll let you know when we know, but we might not know right away. And then the final part, if you are lucky enough to be awarded, and it's a beautiful thing, we get to go through this project and become really good friends for a period of time. And we kind of go through it together. So, and then sure, some of you work for me and say, yeah, we figured it out. At first he was a little annoying and got kind of nitpicky, but once we kind of figured it out, it's kind of a well-oiled machine. So we it's the fun part, actually seeing it unveil. I think one thing I'm just going to point to in the bottom part of that is if you get a grant, this is taxable. And so you will get a 1099. And other than that, I don't know the tax code. I'm not going to speak to that, but do understand when you get a grant, it has an element of taxability. I'll put it that way. All right. And next, not going to talk a lot about scoring. The thing that I'll maybe emphasize here, nature of the project, that's a biggie. And this is really where you tell your story. This is you writing the feasibility study. I am going to grow something that I've got a place where I can sell it to more people. I've got enough room to grow it. That would be operational facility efficiency. It's profitable, and I can do this for a long time. That's your story. This is subjective. Be very careful as you look at this. They're going to ask you for certain details within it. Try and answer, even if you know how you get something, restate what they're telling you and finish the sentence. And then content's important too. It has to make sense. You can't write just some bogus ending, but do something that somebody, again, it's kind of that straight face test that somebody reading that says, yeah, I think that makes sense. Qualifications and personnel. Do you have people that know what they're doing? Do they have a background? Talk about their background. Talk about the background that's important. Not that if they've been doing something else, they've made Little Caesars pizzas or something. Does that really fit in? Not that that's a bad thing. I love that kind of pizza, but include work experience, people in there as best you can. They're going to be working on this project that can help you get to where you want to be. If you haven't, if you got going to have to hire somebody and you don't even know who that person is, you can't say, Nancy, she's, we already have this person on staff. They have all this marketing experience, but we need to hire somebody to help Nancy. We don't know who that is, but this is what their qualifications are going to look like. Make sure you include those kinds of things. If you've got, going back to that budget, remember how important I said that was. If you have that thing laid out and can tell us, this is what this is going to cost, this is what, this is how I got there, this is how, support what you're doing. It's kind of like, show your math. I want to see how you got there. Somebody scoring that work plan and budget is going to say, okay, I got that. Matching funds commitments. If you have a bank or whatever, those are going to kind of speak for themselves. You get certain amount of points depending on what, how you match that. I'm not going to get into that. Probably Melissa will. If you've had a grant before, this is new. Last year it was new. Those that are first time are going to get more points than those that have had one before. Priority points, sometimes that changes a little bit, but this is where we're at with it now. In the world of grants, you have priority points, and they might look where they want emphasis. Maybe they want to have grants in places where they've never had them before. They could just be, different. Different leadership might put more emphasis than others. This is how they have it structured now, and I expect it to stay the same, but I don't know at this point until we actually get the plan rolling, or the application period window rolling. Okay. I'm gonna have a
Yay.
drink of coffee.
We made it this far. Yeah, so there have been some questions that have come up in the chat. I'm going to go to the next slide to show you the agency contacts for the different regions in Washington State. We're very fortunate. We have several of these people with us here today, but I wanted to go back and have rural development staff answer a couple of the questions that have come in. Then we'll take a break. Then we'll have a farmer panel, and then I'll talk about how you go about preparing to apply, just so you know what's coming. Okay, so questions. So what part of a planning grant can include producer expertise and labor for match? In addition, in conjunction with the producer, what about a test run or product development, packaging design? Is planning all for external expertise? And I would love to hear your answers on that.
Lucas?
Yeah, so for planning grants, we can't use the applicant's labor as match. If there's a third party, like just for example, if NABC is going to donate some of their time to do a feasibility study, marketing plan, business plan, then we can count that as match, but it can't come, the match can't be labor or in-kind commodity for planning grants. And then planning grants can't help with test runs. Product
I don't think
development.
so. It's pretty specific in being a feasibility study or a business plan.
The packaging design can kind of be incorporated in like business plan or marketing plan, but the project couldn't just be for kind of packaging design. That could be a smaller part of it.
Jude also asked, how rural does the operation applicant need to be?
There is no rural requirement for our VAPG grants. So
Yay.
they can be located wherever. Yeah.
Yep.
Let's see. So there was a question about that 25% match for labor. I think we might have addressed that together in the chat, that up to half of your match, 50% of the match, 25% of the project can be family labor. Any other labor that's outside of the family would be an eligible expense that USDA would pay for. But the family labor that's contributed, whether you pay your son yourself or not, can be part of that match that you, I mean, I love federal math here, where we can talk about the commodity and our own time as if they were cash. It's really great. Okay, what other? Let's see. So Jude said, if next spring, what is the prospect of VAPG being released and likely timeline? When will the portal open? Can we get a preview of all the application questions templates?
So the website's already listed the time when applications are going to open. This is kind of the first year that we're going to start with this. Each year, applications are now going to open at the same time and end at the same time. So hopefully that kind of all works out. The portal will open. Melissa, do you have that date?
I think
In
it opens
November.
November 3rd. Yeah, so the
November
application
3rd.
period opens November 3rd, closes, I can't remember the exact date, but mid-February. But in terms of being able to preview it, honestly, if you start right now putting together a good business and marketing plan, you will have produced most of the material that you need in order to be ready the day that it opens to start entering information in there. And I'm going to go over all of that in our last hour together.
Yeah, and I see Micah just dropped a self-assessment link there. Thanks, Micah. That might be kind of go into your question and having some idea beforehand. That might give you some insight too on what it's going to look like. It's a
Yeah,
good
I
that's
will
a great
resource.
idea.
We'll add the nice part about the portal is we can look kind of at real time as you're updating the application. So if you input some information, you want some feedback on it right away, we can log in and kind of look at what you filled out so far and give you immediate feedback. So that's it's been a really nice kind of addition to the application process.
Yeah, and I will chime in there to say that our rural development people are incredibly responsive, and I'm very grateful for that. They very much are on the side of producers, wanting them to be funded, wanting them to produce successful applications. I always encourage people to complete their application 2 to 4 weeks before the deadline, so that then you can ask them and say, hey, can you review this? Tell me what you think, so that you have time to add their feedback in. And I would recommend adding all of their feedback in to get the very best score that you can.
And
And
we
then,
may not be the ones scoring it, but we can, sometimes we find things that don't say that, or or whatever. Generally, we're going to help you make it better.
yeah.
I'll put it that way. We're busy too with could be a lot of different things. But what you said, Melissa, is so true. We work hard to get these funded for you. We advocate for you. So we're on your team too. We at the end of the day, we don't have all the say in it, but we're here to help you. We're not just government employees checking boxes, and we're we like what you're doing and we want to help you.
For flower growers, is selling bouquets considered value add? And Mike has said that cut flowers can qualify under the produced in a matter category as organically grown. And then one island asked if the focus is elaborate wedding decor woven into design, does that qualify even if not organic?
Oof. Is that one tricky? Are flowers kind of tricky?
Flowers are tricky. Yeah, because that one catch-all category of locally produced is only for food, right? So then you've got to argue another category.
Mm-hmm.
So the enhanced in an enhanced manner is typically what we try to do, unless you're doing dried flowers or flower essential oil, right? So that's a change of
Yeah.
state. But that enhanced manner is tricky with flowers. Remembering, of course, that you have to be able to prove that you're growing it and adding value to it in some way different than flowers that you would just find in a grocery store.
Right.
So I guess my answer would be, if that's what you want to do, you're going to have to work really hard to demonstrate that there's something really specific about your, well, it's enhanced production methods. So that's a tough one. That's just a tough one. Yeah. Well, we have one more question. Can an applicant be a nonprofit that helps market commercial farm products where over 50% is grown for a small group of producers, like the salsa question? So this is not for nonprofits. This is for agricultural producers. Oh, I'm going to let you guys answer that. Sorry.
I thought you were doing great.
Yeah.
Is that possibly gonna maybe fit into a different category though? I don't.
Yeah, one of those producer groups, but it has to be a group of producers. So that could be a nonprofit that's made up of agricultural producers. Um, that would need to be the under $50,000 grant or an emerging market grant. Um, Honestly, I think there's better programs for nonprofits than this one. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
up.
Why don't and if she wants, he or she wants to reach out to us, um, with maybe some more specifics, and we can help find what path might make sense. Um, because that one's got some. We got to get in the weeds a little bit on that.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and take a break. Take about a 5-minute break. When we come back, we'll have our farmer panel keep bringing the questions in. We will have another question and answer time, maybe even two, as we progress. But yeah, let's just take a 5-minute break. When we come back, we'll have a panel of farmers who've received value-added producer grants, talk about their
Hey.
experience, and then I'll get to talk about how to prepare for an application.
Thanks, Melissa.
Okay. Thank you, Emily. So today we have a panel of three farmers who have all been through the value-added producer grant application process and have won grants. So I am going to stop sharing screen so that you can see them better and ask them to share their stories. So Grayson, let's start with you. Go ahead and unmute and tell us about your operation, the grant that you received, and anything you would like to share. If you're back. Oh, there's
Hey, I'm back. Yeah. Hi, folks. My name is Grayson. Good to see some familiar faces and names out there in the screens. But yeah, I farm in Eatonville, Washington. I'm like about an hour from Tacoma and an hour and some change from Seattle. We do diversified like mixed vegetables grown organically out here. And then we have maybe about like 20-ish acres of pasture where we've got sheep and laying hens. The main focus of my VAPG grant, which was the full amount, the 500,000, is on the vegetable aspect of the product or of our operation. I remember seeing the VAPG grant around for a few years and kind of never understood, kind of just assumed it wasn't for me because I'm not making, a dip, a jam, something out of it afterwards. But yeah, I kind of got connected through NABC to Melissa and some other folks. I think Boldly Grown Farm was one of the folks that was kind of doing a grant that was kind of sparked my imagination and like, oh, wow, this is for me. And their grant, which is the same as ours, is that selecting like, three specific crops, and the value add of those crops is that we are marketing them locally. So they're being marketed and sold within 100 miles of our farm, which I think the furthest we go was like just under 50 miles or just over 50 to Seattle. So pretty tight in terms of where we get our stuff out. Did you want me to kind of just keep going, Melissa? Sorry, I lost the
Sure.
question.
Yeah. Tell us your story. What was the application process like? You've told us that
Okay.
it was for some vegetables for the 250,000. Yeah, what was that like for you going through the process of writing the application and now executing on the project?
Cool. Thanks for the reminder. We are in year two or finishing year two. So we're kind of like over the middle, I would say. I would say that it was a pretty full on process to write the grant. It's also kind of a difficult time of year to be trapped in an office because it's like now, which as you all know, if you're growing vegetables, like everything is happening. That's definitely a challenge. I would estimate it was between like around 30 hours of my time, maybe more. That's meeting pretty regularly with Melissa, writing a pretty in-depth business plan. That application is pretty requires a lot of work, a lot of wordsmithing, and a lot of like specificity in what you're trying to, convey to the folks that are reviewing the application. I found it really worthwhile, even if maybe some of those hours, if I didn't get the grant, would kind of be flushed down the toilet a little bit. But I did find it useful, even if I weren't to have gotten the grant, to have gone through some of that process. I think it really showed me what my business could do, like the process of projecting and thinking through what would happen if I focused on these 3 crops, and what could I do, or how could I scale up more if I had more money, or more coverage for those market expansions through a grant like this. So even if I didn't get it, I still would have found it, I think, a little bit pretty useful, because I think it was a good timing for me, because it kind of focused me on taking my business more seriously, and taking myself more seriously as well, as I was expanding and kind of moving from being I still work on the farm a lot, but I would say I work on it less. I'm working more in the office sort of end of things more. And I think this grant kind of helped me figure out where my role is actually the most helpful in growing this business. Because I think it linked in well to some goals for me, which is, I want to run this business as sustainably as possible for as long as I can. And I also want to make sure I'm paying myself and the folks who work out here a living wage. And for us, that meant scaling and shifting a little bit. So this grant was definitely really helpful in that. I would also just say, I think it's hard to know for sure if this grant was the factor for all these things, but it had a lot of really awesome knock-on effects in the last few years for me, just in terms of leveraging other pieces of funding. So leveraging grants from the WSDA, leveraging a grant from the Pike Place Market Foundation to finish off our wash pack. Again, it just like makes you and your business look that much more serious, because it is, and that much more intentional. So yeah, I have nothing but good things to say about it. It is a lot of work though. Yeah.
And just to encourage people with the match, so you got a $250,000 grant. How much cash did you have to put up, or what did you do for your $250,000 piece?
Yeah, I think my cash match was like only $1,000, because that is what I had available. So a lot of the match, almost all of the match, is coming from commodity. So for us, we picked 3 things that I know that I can sell really well, and one of which I felt like we can do really efficiently. So we chose tomatoes, kale, and carrots. Kale being the one that we can just like move really efficiently through from a production standpoint, and the other 2 being like kind of best sellers. And tomatoes specifically, if I were to do it again, I would be more intentional about picking things that had a high commodity price, or I could do the research of finding things that had market prices that I could back that up in the application. I don't know if I'm saying that super clearly, but I also know that there's an option of if you find a product, you can find the market price from 3 different other distributors to ask for a higher price than what the AMS price is, or to rationalize that in your application. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the great thing about Grayson's project is that by picking just the 3 vegetables out of however many other things you grow, you now can come back when you're done with this grant and apply for another one for other vegetables. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's been like farm changing, life changing. So yeah, really, really wonderful grant. And I hope all of you that apply have great applications and get it.
Awesome. Thank you, Grayson. Janine, I'd love to hear from you. Tell us who you are, what your farm does, and what your project is.
Hi, my name is Janine. I've been running a farm called Kersop Farm with my husband, Colin Barraclough, for 29 years. We started with organic vegetables, and about halfway through, we added organic meat chickens. And somewhere along the line, we've also added a lot of other stuff like sheep and grain and flowers and hens. One of the things about this VAPG process that I've been in for a few years now is keeping track of everything and having a better relationship with my numbers so that I could make better choices about my business. Like, for instance, we're not doing pork anymore. We used to do a few pigs every year, and it's not that much effort to do it, but it's not nothing either. And through the process of tracking all these numbers, it was really great to see, like, oh, you know what, we could slice off this part of our business and focus more on the parts that are really important to us, like the chicken meat that our VAPG grant is focused on. Let's see, our farm is in Rochester, Washington. We mostly sell at farmers markets in Seattle. We do a little bit of wholesaling. We were before we applied for the grant, and a little bit more now, 10,000 chickens per year, broilers, and we grow about 20 acres of mixed vegetables. So that's kind of the size of our operation. We process our own chickens on the farm and package and sell them. Let's see, our VAPG grant was for the full amount, 250,000. And as far as I know, we used the commodity value of our chicken for the entire match. We didn't do any labor or cash matching for that.
Well, you did a little tiny bit of cash because that gives you extra points.
Oh, maybe because Melissa told me to, we put in a little tiny bit of cash. And the main point that I will say actually is, if you can, you should hire Melissa to help you with this, because she absolutely knows what's happening, and it's much easier. It was very much easier for me to consider doing this at all with her help, mostly because she was a farmer before she started helping people get these grants. So I really had a level of trust in her that I wouldn't necessarily have with some other type of consultant who was offering to help me. I did meet Melissa through NABC, and I also have a business coach through Business Impact Northwest. And I have one trusted friend who works here with me. And so during the application process, I would spend 3 one-hour appointments every week meeting with each of these women to get my sales numbers together, get my production numbers together, work on some aspect of the VAPG application. You know, Melissa would give me my homework for the week, and then these other 2 people would help me do the homework. And in some cases, it was just having an appointment and a block of time that, because, you know, there's always something that's more fun and more important to do than any kind of office work. So let's see, what else could I say about this?
To talk about the reimbursement process, what has that been like for you?
Oh yeah, we're coming up on like the 1-year anniversary. We got to start putting in our draws for reimbursement in the fall last year. And it is not very difficult, again, because Melissa helps me with it and my friend Amy helps me with it. We just keep track of like our payroll reports, our receipts for packaging, not equipment, supplies, things, all the things that we buy, gloves, soap, bleach, like every little thing, we just put it in this file. And then once a month, we put it on the calendar to spend an hour getting our act together for the draw. And then we put it all together and we send it to Melissa. And then Melissa looks it over and sends it to Jeff. And then we get money like 5 days later. It's amazing. It's just a direct deposit. And so I would say that, like getting all the way down to the impact part of these talking points that I was trying to pay attention to, the financial boost of having this grant to our farm business has been so important. It's life-changing, business-changing. Also, all of the work that went into it and that still goes on with keeping records for the draw has made me a better business person. So it would be valuable even if I had not received the grant. Like getting familiar with the numbers and tracking them this way and that way, and just really looking at where are we doing all the work? Where are we getting money? What's happening? How could we make a plan to make things better?
Thank you. That's great. So now I'd like to introduce one of my absolutely favorite farmers ever. Dorcas Young has received 3 back-to-back value-added producer grants, and I'm excited for you all to hear her story. There you go, Dorcas. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Well, let me just bow myself to thank everyone who's here to hear this story and the journey of being a woman in agriculture. Well, my journey started in 2016 with Melissa Moeller and Jeff Vols at NABC. I attended a class through USDA for grants. I had nothing. I was doing a PPAG, but I had this vision of agriculture. I grew up in a farm, but I had this desire to be able to take opportunity to do something and to eat healthy food. That was a big thing. So in 2016, I attended a class in Mount Vernon. Melissa was there, and there were a couple of us, and they said you can sign up and take a class. So I went ahead and signed up. And I was driving to Mount Vernon to meet Melissa, 50,000. And I stated, I didn't really understand it, but I had a desire to make something because I had no money to start a farm or anything like that. It was just desire. And then it happened. And I said, well, there we go. Kale chips. It was 50,000 for kale chips. The time when the kale chips people were doing it. And my daughter and said, we're going to harness this. This is going to take us somewhere. Did we know this is going to build us to be where we are? We did not know, but I believe fairly that hard work, perseverance, persistence will take me there. So I had 5 kids. Think about that. They're in school, husband working, and it was patch. And I was going to school at the same time. I was going to University of Washington to finish my degree, and I did the School of Food Science. All this training, it was all emerged on that time. That's my story, actually. So I started there. So I stayed with Melissa and Jeff. I said, I'm not moving. So I stayed there. I didn't know what every week, like she said, Janine, I had appointment to ask questions. She gave me homework. I go and do it. And I send it back to her. She will correct it and then do this. And then I went through it and then I finished it and we submitted it and I got that 50,000. I said, I'm going to come back. So after that was done, I went back again. They had another class and I said, I'm taking that class. I was not owning the land. I was renting the land from Greenbank and P-Patch. I was driving back and forth, but the desire was that I will work harder as long as I have a cushion for cash flow, because this was a better cash flow for me to start with. And then we went back, and that actually was a boost. I had no money. I was doing a P-Patch. I was doing the farmers. I had zero money. Receiving that, I boosted them. I increased the growing. I increased the production. I increased everything. I kept every penny I was making a little profit. I was saving it. I did not spend. I was saving it. We'll use a little bit. I had to cook. We did not eat out. We just stayed there and I said, I need this to take us somewhere. So Melissa was a farmer. I went to her farm and I saw that I was so inspired to see her doing this and helping other farmers like me, like others that had nothing. There was a couple of us, we pursued this, we did it. And then in 2020, I think it was 2020, my second one, and I was growing fava beans. And I said to myself, we gotta do something. These fava beans were, when you grow them, they're so abundant. And then I said, I'm just gonna grow fava beans and scarlet runners, and I'm gonna dry and sell them dried. We did that. So as we were moving forward in it with the beans, they were not really selling. And then I went back and talked to the grant officer, said, can I just do something parallel to that to increase the sales especially with the marketing? I did that and I was able to change the state of those beans and do a lot of marketing. And that was a very good thing we did. I had hired people and we did that. So my second grant was because of the fava beans, I went back. So I developed during that time pesto during that time, and I kept the records, how much I was selling them. Even right now, that's what I'm doing. I'm keeping a track because I want to go back there. Now that I have a space, I'm telling you, everyone who's here, my story, when you can read a little bit more where I come from, how I became to be here, and the labor that I put into this, it's not an easy. It's not for everyone. You have to be determined. You have to sacrifice to be able to go where you are. Some people may get it easier, but for me, it was not. It was not. So my second one, with telling Melissa, she's a great teacher, a patient person to work with, and she's very directive about how to teach you, how to help you to get there. I went back and said, I'm coming back for this. And the pesto did come through it, and we are working through it until probably next year. And it helped me. Transportation, I do the demos because the market is kind of like a little iffy, people buying. I boost the marketing part of that product. I do demos. I develop how you can use the pesto with this, you can pesto with, be creative so that the products can really be seen out there, can be used. Right now, a lot of that, and I've got employees that she's been with us for almost 4 years since I got the VAPG because it helps her. She's in school and she loves it and she's moving forward with us. Very reliable employee that I'm keeping her. And she's learning. And I can see that this girl, she's going to have herself. She has that. So for me to see that I've inspired my own girls, 2 girls I have, plus another girl, to be able to see the potential of them, if they don't have any other job, they can look into this. And I can be the role model for them to say, yes, you can do this. It can help you. So those are the things that I went through. And then the process of writing a grant was, like I said, Melissa was really helpful. And she has always, I will hire her in a day bit. For her, anything I get, I just go here and said, Melissa, here we are. And she knows how to be able to guide us, to lead us there. Okay, like I said, the strategy is how I did that through persistent and keep working at it. How did I balance a farm work plus that? Well, let me tell you, you have to have a tenacity and non-sleep. You can only sleep 3 hours, you okay. That's how I do it. Sometimes 24 hours. My son will say, Mom, did you really sleep? And I said, well, I'll sleep after the market. Yeah, because we're doing markets. I do a lot of markets. I have 4 wholesaling right now that I wholesale my pesto. And even the kale chips that I started then, they're still going. And the beans, they're still going. They never cease. And then if I go back, you see, it will take me with all these products to another level. Right now, I can tell you a story. I got a farmer last year. Through that hard work and hard labor, I got a farm. And I'm talking right to you right now, 18 acres of land with everything. I started my fava beans. They are growing and we are putting tomatoes and we are finishing our commercial kitchen where I will be doing this work. It was just that niche that I looked at it and I worked very hard at it and I am here today. Anything, Melissa, the specific examples and challenges? Well, the challenges was, how do you balance with work and the family? You have to really be determined to do this, but it helps you to get there. You can pick up one crop and don't have to take 250, don't just a little bit that start with, and it will take you there. Well, the documents required, you have to register, you have to have what is the number that you need from the SAM. You have to have a SAM. I did that in the beginning, and that kind of carries you forward because you have to that's one of the documents that you're required to do in advance. And now that there's some changes, you have to do those in advance and get those application ready so that when Melissa, she's teaching you, you have those. Those are part of the homework, and you get those and you get them going. I had never had any application rejected because the tenacity and the patience and the detail that Melissa was guiding me, I was following that directions. And I was not wavering to say, oh, I'm going to do this. I just follow what she said. This is what you need to do. Learn about this, research that, and put it together. That's how I did. I did that. And then, well, there were challenges and setbacks. I mean, the processing of getting the refund was another thing. And I had to put $500. I think the first one, I don't know, I put $50 or something like that. And the second was $500. And then the third one that I think it was another $500, yes. And then that's what I did. How have the grants you receive impacted your firm? Wow, let me tell you guys, I am here because of this. I would not be here if I didn't get this grant, because it was a base cash flow that helped me to move forward. So I'm so grateful for these grants, for the United States to keep funding small farms. I am a very example. I'll stand there in the White House and show them where I started with nothing and I work hard and now I own the farm. Now I can have students come here and learn something, and I have those 2 kids. That's make a big impact on the people to see this. Right now, well, some of the new people that are new farmers, I'm going to tell you one thing. If you want to try, don't give up. There's one thing that don't get derailed by, oh, there's too much. Just go for 30,000 at least. Have experience, with the 2 chickens, Marisa, I think she started there with a few chickens. You just start there. And then with whatever, whether you are growing only rosemary, how you can process and package it, anything like that. I'm encouraging women in agriculture to move forward and to do this, because sooner or later we're going to rely on small farmers. That's my encouragement. This is for us to start establishing the communities and helping children and young students to learn that farming is something can be done, and we can eat healthy and feed our family healthy, and the community can strive. That's my encouragement there. Thank you, Melissa. Is there anything else I can say? I don't know.
Thank you, Dorcas. Yeah, so just make sure everyone heard that. Dorcas has gotten 3 back-to-back VAPGs from 2016 to the present, 2 for under 50,000, and then the third one for the whole 250,000. She went from a dream and a pea patch to owning an 18-acre farm, and now is putting in a commercial kitchen, which I didn't even know about. That's absolutely fabulous. Yeah, you are definitely a model for all of us of perseverance and just continuing to farm really hard. All of our farmers on the panel today, I are some of my favorite people, and I'm so glad they all agreed to be here today. Does anyone have any questions for our panelists? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Hey, Melissa, I have to go to my inspection.
You
I will
do.
just have
Okay.
to.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for
Thank
being
you,
here,
everyone.
Dorcas.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. Well, yeah, I appreciate Janine and Grayson, you being here and sharing your stories. The VAPG is such a valuable program, and I'm so glad that they were able to be here and tell their stories and talk about their journeys and the impact this grant program has had on them. I'm going to go back to sharing screen if I can figure out how to do that. Why am I not seeing how to do that? Is that something you can help me with, Emily? My share button isn't here. Where did it go?
On the bottom, I don't know. Here, let me
Yeah. Oh, more. I gotta click on more.
make sure you're still co-host.
Ah, there's share.
You found it?
I did.
Okay, great.
You seen the application process up on the screen? Is that showing up there?
Yes, it
Good.
looks great.
Excellent. Okay. So now what I want to do is talk you through what you should be doing now to prepare for this. So I had briefly at the very beginning said that I ran a farm for 16 years and had 3 grants. I didn't say what they were. My first one was for taking retired laying hens and turning them into soup stock. And then that was so successful, and I really enjoyed the process of that, that then I applied for taking chicken manure and turning it into bagged compost. So at that point, my husband said I had really made it in the world when I was able to get people to buy poop. But then I really understood how to write the applications better. Both of those were under the $50,000. And then I did one for $250,000 to sell more eggs to more people and more places. And at that point, I had started writing grants for other people. Dorcas was the very first one, and realized that that was my real passion, was to help other farmers grow their businesses. And so we sold our chicken farm to a neighboring farmer, and it is continuing on to this day. So the application process. Okay, so step one, what I really want you to do first is determine what your value-added project could be. I hope what you heard here today from Jeff was that it doesn't have to be apples to applesauce, right? Or milk into cheese. If you are selling a food product within 400 miles of your farm, or within the state of Washington, you are selling a local product that has added value to it by selling it locally. Now, I did emphasize food for a reason, because it is only a food category. So there's the change in physical state, where you've changed it from one thing to another thing. There's the selling the local food, and then there's the enhanced production methods. So organic, biodynamic, free range, pasture raised. These would all be examples of something where you would have to explain and tell why that farming method adds value and allows you to sell that product for more than if you weren't growing it using that method, right? So everything you're doing is you're having to show that if I sold a ton of apples into the commodity market, it would be worth, I don't know, $2, $3 a pound. But if I sell it locally, or if I change it into applesauce, or if I sell it organically, I've added value to it and now can sell it for more than $3. Now it's $5, $6, maybe it's $12 when it's turned into applesauce. It's more than the commodity value. So what is it that you're already producing? Everyone always wants to come into this and says, yeah, I've been growing blueberries and I want to make blueberry jam. Well, first let's talk about how much are you selling in blueberries? How much more could you produce of that? Do you have a wait list for your product? If you're raising eggs, you probably have a wait list, right? If you had more chickens, could you sell more eggs rather than trying to go into something like, the mistake I made of, oh, it's got to be a change in state. It has to be a new thing like the soup stock. I mean, yeah, I would have been better off if I had started with, let's sell more eggs to more people and more places, and build up the farm, so that then I could have asked for more when I was ready to start selling soup stock on a bigger scale. Those were pretty small applications I did. One thing about an application is, once you've asked for and received a VAPG for a project, you can't come back and ask for more. So some of the hardest applications I've seen are where somebody has said, well, we're going to increase the milk that we're selling, and we're going to make strawberry, blueberry, grape, peach, and I don't know, some other kind of berry yogurt. Well, once you've mentioned all of those, even if they only ever just sold vanilla yogurt, they mentioned all of the possibilities in their first application. So now they come to me and say, oh, that works so great, I'd like to apply for another one. Well, we never did the strawberry yogurt. Can we do it? I'm like, no, you mentioned it in your previous application. So unless you're selling to a very different geographic region, like going from selling locally in Washington to selling nationally, that's not an eligible project. So I really like to have you see it. What are you already doing? What can you produce and sell more of? Especially, I really like to see people doing the market expansion grant rather than the emerging market or the planning grant. It shows that you understand the product, how to grow it, what the market potential is. And they're by far the easiest applications to write, and tend to be able to get toward that $250,000 ask a lot quicker. So what can you produce more of? How can you narrow the scope of your application to maximize your grant ask? So if you can just talk about, the vanilla yogurt, or selling more apples rather than trying to make a brand new product with applesauce. That's what I always encourage you to do. Narrowing it, like in Grayson's case, where he and I picked 3 vegetables that he sells a lot of, or in Dorcas's case, where we did the dried kale and then the fava beans and then the hummus. So just picking a little bit of what your operation is and not trying to expand everything all at once, right? Pick some way to narrow it, but still try to get to, if you're going to do the small one, as close to 50,000 as you can without hitting 50,000. Or if you go over that, to try to get up to that $250,000 ask. And then the last part of that step would be, what value-added methodology should you use? So clearly, if it's a change of state, if you're drying lavender into dried lavender or turning it into lavender oil, a change of state, something that's irreversible, you can never go back from lavender oil back to a flower, right, on the plant. That's an irreversible state. Change of state is always your best option if you can do that. If that doesn't work, then if it's a food item, I would say locally produced, because we all know, especially here in Washington State, that people are willing to pay more for a local food product than for a product that came from far away. And so you're adding value by selling it locally. And then the third one I would encourage you to look at after that is enhanced production methods. If you are doing something special like organic or biodynamic and can prove that that allows you to sell it for more in the marketplace over the commodity price, that would be the third. The other two, I've never seen an application with the energy or the segregation with the GMO and non-GMO. So focus on one of those 3 if you can. Okay, so you can apply for, like we saw with our panelists, you can apply for and receive another VAPG after this first one, but the new application must be substantially different in terms of the product and or markets, and can't be an extension on your previously funded application. So I really encourage you to plan for this when you're writing your first application. Again, don't write it so broad, mentioning every product you have or might have, and then not allow yourself room to come back and say, oh, this really helped me grow my farm. Now I'd really like to apply for another one. Make sure you leave room for that, right? Think that through really carefully before you submit an application. Okay. So step 2, choose that value-added methodology. I guess I already talked about this. Change in physical state, locally produced food product, enhanced production method, physical segregation, or renewable energy. I think I already went over all of those well enough, but you only need to choose one. You can choose one, right? So if you choose a locally produced food product, in your narrative, you are going to need to prove and reference repeatedly how you are able to sell it, that there's greater demand and a greater price for your locally produced and sold food than there would be for the commodity. So whichever one of these methods you choose, keep that in mind throughout your entire narrative. You're going to want to come back to that one value-added methodology. And you say, yeah, but I can fit into 1, 2, and 3. That's great. You're only going to choose one, and you're going to revolve your narrative around how the one method that you think best fits you will allow you to increase the revenue that comes to you at the farm, that allows you to sell more product to people who are willing to pay more. Okay. Oh, again, reviewing that change in physical state. Sorry, I guess I got ahead of myself here. So that change in physical state is an irreversible process that alters the commodity and enhances its value. It can never go back into what it was before. Locally produced agricultural food product, so sold within 400 miles of your farm or within your state. And really, this is anything that you sell, as long as you can sell that customers will pay more for it as being local than from far away. Enhanced production methods. This is organic, free range, biodynamic, anything where you can say, we're raising this in such a way that it has greater value than something that's not raised this way. Okay. So step number 3, understand your current numbers. These are things that you can absolutely be doing now before the application period opens. In fact, you really should do them now. Once the application opens, it's a pretty tight turnaround for the amount of work that you need to do. So the more of this that you have done and figured out ahead of time, the better off you'll be. And also it'll just help you be a better farm manager rather than a farm worker on your own farm. So how much of the potential value-added product have you produced in the last 3 years? What have your production records been? How many pounds, tons, ounces, whatever measure you use, have you done? And how much more can you produce in the next 3 years? This will be part of your marketing plan, and will be, even if you are just applying for a small grant, you're going to need to show that you understand how much you've done and how much more you can do. What have your sales been like for the past 3 years? If you're just going to do blueberries and not all the berries on your farm, you need to know how many pounds of blueberries and what you have sold those for in the last 3 years. And how much more do you think you can sell in the next 3 to 5 years? Who are your current customers? You don't have to have everyone by name at the farmer's market, but general categories, So how many farmers market customers would you estimate you have? How many grocery stores do you sell to? Do you sell through the food hub? What are your current markets? And if you had more, who would buy from you? What would be the market channels that you would target for new sales? A value-added producer grant needs to focus on new sales, selling more of something to more people and more places. Just always remember that. It's new sales, new people, new places are what they want to fund. They're here to help you grow your market for a product that you're selling, not just to continue to sell to the same 10 people who buy a quarter share of beef from you. You need to be producing more beef in that case and find new customers, or switch from selling by custom by the quarter to selling by the cut under USDA. That would be a whole new market for a beef product, for example. Okay. So the 4th step, or really this could even be the first step, make sure all your business licenses are current. If you're asking for money from the federal government, you want to make sure that you are coloring within all of the appropriate lines. Do you have all the appropriate business licenses for where you're operating? The state of Washington is pretty generous with farms who are selling direct, but at the same time, you do want to make sure you have your business licenses in order. Are you employing people legally in the farming community? I get it. I've been there. It's really easy and tempting to pay people under the table, pay them cash, trade them. None of that's allowed. It's just not in the state of Washington. So if you are going to be applying for a federal or state grant, make sure that you understand how to employ people legally and begin doing that. You will be asked if you're a US citizen or reside in the US after legal admittance. If that's not true, please don't apply for this grant. Just don't, right? That will be checked. Do you have authority to act on behalf of your organization? Most people, small farmers, yes, Misha, thank you. That would be wonderful that she can help with licensing and regulatory questions. That is awesome. Do you have authority to act on behalf of your organization? I did work with one farmer, and it turned out she didn't have the authority, that it was being run by a trustee and not by her. She thought she had authority, but didn't. Make sure that you are the person who can sign on behalf of the organization and receive federal funds. Are you current on your IRS tax filings? That doesn't mean, when you get to January, you have to already have filed your 2025 returns. But if you're backlogged on that, if the IRS has any judgments against you, go take care of that first. You won't be able to receive federal funds if those things aren't taken care of. So, okay. Number 5. So, do you have a business plan? If you don't, go make a business plan. There's, oh, it says upcoming. I don't think we have an upcoming NABC business plan course right now, but if you need help with that, NABC is here and available to help you with that, and we're happy to do that. But this website is great. Emily, maybe you could put that in the chat from farmers.gov, Your Business Beginning Farmers Business Plan. Great step-by-step, covering all those basics that Jeff was talking about earlier, hitting all the high points. The great thing about having a written business plan is that you're ready for whatever grant application comes your way. So with my farm, I went through a class to do a business plan. Who was that through? Trying to remember. But once I had the business plan, in any grant that would come up, like the TILT grant, or we didn't have infrastructure grants back in the day, but there is one right now in Washington State. Having a written business plan allows you to take that language that you've worked with, cultivating success. That's the one I took. Thank you. Take that language that you've developed on who are we, what's our story. If you have that in writing, you can take that and copy and paste pieces of that into applications all over the place when they come available, and you don't have to start from scratch. So everybody should have a written business plan and then update it every year for yourself. I had an internal business plan that was, you know what, this is for me and my husband, and we kind of had our, not just the business, but how is this farm going to impact our family, and, you know, lay it all out there. And then we would take pieces of that and be able to share those with granting organizations and the pieces that were relevant for the story that we wanted to share. Do you have a marketing plan for your value-added product? I would highly recommend creating a marketing plan. Even if you have a business plan for your overall business, you really want a marketing plan that details all the pieces of the market expansion for the value-added product. I've developed one that has a template that has all the pieces that then get copied and pasted into the VAPG grant portal, and Emily can provide that to anyone who asks for it. That is available for free through NABC. And if you follow that and answer all of the prompts, all of the questions, you are well on your way toward having the material you need to apply for the VAPG. So if this is a new product for you, you do need to go have a feasibility study done, produced by a qualified third-party professional. You cannot do that yourself. You have to have somebody else do that. And so that is for that emerging market working capital grant. I always encourage people to grow your business on your own for 2 years. 2 years is not that long. And then you can do a market expansion grant, and you don't have to pay somebody for the feasibility study. But if you are part of a farmers cooperative or other agricultural group and want to expand into a new market, or to start together making jams and jellies, then the emerging market is the application that you would want to do, and you would need to go get that feasibility study. Even as an independent agricultural producer, you can say, I just don't want to wait. I really want to get going on producing that blueberry jam. I've been doing blueberries, but I'm ready to start doing blueberry jam. Haven't been doing it for 2 years yet. Go get that feasibility study done now, like this week, in anticipation of this grant opening up on November 3rd is the targeted date. They take time. A feasibility study that is done by a qualified professional will take some time, but they're actually a really valuable tool to have in your pocket as well. Okay, so step number 6, at this point, you have the basics of what you need in order to apply. The application portal is not open yet, but as of last year, applications are done entirely through the portal. And having done it on paper in a Word document with lots of attachments for many, many years, I will say that the portal is a great addition to this program. It guides you through all of the steps and makes sure that you don't skip any of them. It doesn't have a way to tell you if you've answered the question thoroughly or, with enough detail to make the reviewers happy, but it will make sure that your budget is balanced and that you did answer all of the questions. So even though you can't get into the portal yet, the steps that we talked about are all great ways to prepare for that. In addition, okay. So yeah, so the pieces that you'll need for that application. And even though it's not open and you can't see it, you can go see the CFRs. Maybe somebody could post a link in the chat to the CFRs that detail out all of the different things that are looked for. But your project's going to need a budget that's going to show half of the funds coming from you, whether that's in cash, your family labor, or the value of your commodity, and half of the funds coming from USDA. You'll need to have projections for how much of the value-added product that you can produce and have in the past, how much more you think you'll be able to sell, your projections on who you're going to sell to. You're going to need some, thank you, Mika, for that. Sorry. You're going to need to have that business or marketing plan unless you're only going to apply under the $50,000. But again, by the time you finish the application, you will have created all of the pieces that go into a business and marketing plan. So you might as well get one put together. You will need to verify that your business is in good standing, that you have all the appropriate licenses, and you'll need to verify your in-kind matching. You don't need to show those two things now, but you will if you are awarded the funds. So it's always really good to make sure that you understand what that means for your business. So the verification that your business is in good standing, if you're an LLC, you go to the Secretary of State's website and you could say, yep, I'm in good standing. Here it is. It shows that I've updated my fees for the year. Here's my business license through the state of Washington. Verification of your in-kind matching. You'll in your application do the math to say, well, this is what the Department of Labor says that a farm manager should make. Whether or not you pay yourself isn't relevant at that point. You are worth, I think the last year it was $43 or $44 an hour is what the Department of Labor said that a farm business manager should make. So you'd say, well, I'm going to contribute 1,000 hours at this $44 an hour, and that's part of my contribution. My cash match, here's a copy of my bank statement that shows I have that $1,000 in there. And then here's what the value of the commodity is based on the USDA AMS or some other source that proves that you understand what the commodity value of a product is. So you'll need to make sure you understand those to put your budget together. And then if you're awarded the money, they'll ask to see the verifications of those. Okay, so here is where the grant application portal will be when it's open. You can still go to this website right now. It doesn't say that it's delayed. That's an old screenshot. But if you just Google a VAPG, you'll land here. It's pretty easy to get back here. So it shows that information on there. There is a fact sheet. There is some extra information. There's that self-assessment can be accessed from this page. If you forget where that link is, again, just search for VAPG, or I'll search for RD space VAPG to get to rural development VAPG, and you'll land here. Okay, so before it opens, and in order to be able to be in the portal, you have to do a couple of things that I'm going to guide you through now. And it is absolutely not too early to do this. Even if you think that there's any chance that you might want to apply for this, you're going to need to do two things. Go get a unique identity identifier from SAM, which is the System for Award Management, and obtain a level 2 e-authentication login. Okay, so we're going to talk about those. And then there's that self-assessment survey, which is optional, but it's a really great way to say, am I thinking along the right lines? Is this a project that fits within the guidelines? And it also kind of lets your local rural development people know that you're interested in applying because they see that. Okay. So that first step, the sam.gov. So you're going to want to go to www.sam.gov, and here's what that landing page starts. And basically what you're doing in here is you are registering your entity with the federal government in order to receive grant money, which is what we're talking about. And I know that sounds scary and like we don't really like to deal with government agencies if we don't have to, but in this case, they are here for your benefit and to help you grow your business. So please do it. One thing that's super important with SAM is all the pieces of your entity have to match. So unfortunately, what happens a lot of time with farmers is we register with the federal government for, an employee identification number with one name or address, and with the state of Washington with the UBI number, maybe there's a different name or address. Everything has to 100% match. And yes, that is a wonderful resource for how to do it. That is going to go into much more detail than what I'm going to be able to provide here. So definitely grab that link, and maybe Emily, you can grab that link and include that in the show notes.
Melissa,
Yes.
I'm going to throw one quick thing in here just so I don't forget to say, this process is free. There are folks out there that will try and catfish you into them helping you for it. I've seen it happen. It's super sad. Make sure you're going to the sam.gov website and not some imposter.
Yeah, that is really good. Thank you for that, Jeff. And then when this has to be renewed annually, and you will start getting very official looking postcards in the mail and emails saying, I'm here, I'm with the federal government, I'm here to help you renew your application for $45, $55, whatever it is. Don't do it. You don't need to. It is free, and there are free resources available to you if you get stuck or have a hard time doing it. There are people out there who will do that for free. Yeah. Okay, so you're going to go to www.sam.gov. You're going to get started to register your entity or get a unique entity ID. So this is what allows the federal government to put money into your checking account. So you want to do this. What do you want to do? So the thing that you want to do once you get into that, once you've created your account, is you want to register for financial assistance awards only. You're not going to be bidding on federal contracts or procurements, and you want more than just getting the unique entity ID. You want this top button, register for financial assistance awards. That's what you're going to need in order to be able to receive the VAPG money. Okay, that's all of the slides I had on there, but this resource from Apex Accelerator is much more detailed, and is there to help you if you get stuck in any of the process. But again, make sure that everything matches. If your business license doesn't match your EIN, if your address is changed, if your IRS filing shows a different name, if it shows the name of a trust or your personal name, make sure all these things link, because they are going to check them, and this could prevent you from being able to receive a grant award that you were awarded if you don't get all of those things to match. This process can take 2 to 3 weeks. So again, I would say this would be job one if you think you're going to apply for the VAPG this year, is getting your SAM. Once you have your SAM, now what you'll do is you will have a login.gov account. So a login.gov allows you to access the federal government resources having to do with your entity. You might already have a login.gov under your personal names to check your Social Security, or I don't know, there might be other uses for it. I'm not sure what else that would be, but you want one for your farm entity, whether that's an LLC or a corporation, or even if it is a sole proprietorship, you'll want to have a login for that. So once you have that sam.gov, you'll have a login.gov, and now you need to go through the e-auth process. So this is authorizing you to log in, and these are pieces that you're just going to need to be able to access the VAPG portal. So this has made it a little more complicated, and there are definitely resources to help you if you get stuck. So you have to do two-factor authentication for security for your application. So you're going to go to eauth.usda.gov. And we'll add that to the list of resources. And then from there, you're going to continue with using your login.gov account. I'm sorry that's hard to see. And under the type of entity you are, you're going to say you're a citizen, you're not a federal employee. And so you'll continue to your login.gov, you'll log in with that, you'll sign in with your password from login.gov. And now you're going to need to, in addition to that password, you're going to need a second form of authentication. And I'm going to walk you through what those are, because honestly, this is the hardest part of the whole application, is just getting the pieces together so that you can start. So I'll go through what each of these are, except for the government employee ID. Okay. So I think the very best one is face or touch unlock. If you're using a private computer or laptop that you own, and you already have it set up for Face ID for other purposes, use that face or touch unlock so that after you type in your password, it's like, look at the camera, and then it identifies that you are who you are. If you're on a public computer, obviously you can't do that, so you'll need to use one of the other methods. The next method that they consider the most secure is an authentication app. So for example, Google has one, Windows has one, there's a Mac one. All of these screenshots are from the eAuth website. So you would see them there. You can add that authentication app, which then goes to your phone, gives you a code that you can then type in. You can buy a security key. This, again, they consider to be one of the safer methods. I haven't really been seeing people do this. Some people are used to this from work if they have a secure kind of government or banking job, or for their retirement account. But you have to go buy that yourself. And then here's how to go through that process. A text or is another good way. They don't consider it as secure. It's a less secure option. And I can't remember if that is even allowed under this. Certainly try it, but I think there was some discussion on whether the text wasn't secure enough. But if it works, that's great. Backup codes. I have seen people who don't have Face ID or who are working on a computer in a public space, say such as a library computer. You can ask them for 10 backup codes. They each can only be used once. So every time you log into your application portal, you need to use a new one. You need to save this, screenshot it, print it out. It's kind of a pain because you're going to log in a lot. If you're working on your application, at least last year, it would time you out after 15 minutes of inactivity. So I would be off working in somebody's marketing plan around the budget, and I come back, I have to log it again. And so if I were using these login codes, I would probably use all 10 in one day. You can ask for another set of 10. And if you lose where they are and you can't remember where you have that printed piece of paper, that can be a problem too. So this is an option that's available. But I would say as a last resort over the other options. Okay, so just to recap there, the things you need to do before you can get into the portal are register in SAM.gov, System for Award Management, to get your unique entity identifier, and this will be a required component of the application. You cannot submit an application without a UEI, or at least having had it started. You have to have that level 2 e-authentication, and it's going to ask you for really personal information, your social security number. You can do it online. If online doesn't work, you can go into, I think it's a government office, like a post office. There's some places it will direct you on where to go. Completing that self-assessment survey is optional, but is a really great thing to do. And then starting on November 3rd, you can get into the grant application portal and start filling out all of the different pieces that you need. And this new grant application portal, it will make sure you don't miss anything on putting your application together. Okay.
Melissa, Jeff here
Yes.
again.
Yes.
They used to give us some slack on having started it. They stopped doing that last year. You need to be fully registered. So
Okay. There you go.
you may there's like different stages of that. You want to make sure you have registration confirmation. You can check with us, early on and can confirm that to some extent on our end. But once the deadline is passed, and there's talk that sometime in the future they may have that interfaced with the portal with sam.gov and you'd be able to confirm that, but that hasn't happened yet. So we just want to make dang sure that you are fully registered.
Yeah, that is good to hear, Jeff. Yeah, I was kind of backpedaling on that because I'm going, oh, I think there's some leeway, but there isn't leeway anymore. You have to have that done. So go get it done now. I think they say it can take up to 3 weeks. So now would be a really good deadline for beginning that process. Okay, so some reminders on what the Value Added Producer Grant is not. It is not a technical assistance program. It's not a job training program. This is not going to teach you how to farm. This is not about learning how to start a farm business. This is not about production in any way. This is all about that post-harvest. We have to draw a firm line in the sand of the product needs to be harvested. And then after that line, that is what this program will cover. It's not intended as a continuous stream of capital, although, I'm all for back-to-back applications as long as you can come up with unique and new products that you can apply for. But it is intended to be something that gives you that boost, that helps you reach the next level so that that particular value-added product can be profitable and stand on its own. If you look at it and say, well, I'm just going to use this to underwrite my business, but I'm not going to reach new customers. I'm not going to sell more product. I'm not going to try to be sustainable and profitable on my own. This isn't the program for you. But that can't be any of us here, right? I mean, we're farmers, we're optimists. We want to work really hard and sell good food to more people and more places. Everybody wants money for equipment and to be able to buy a tractor, be able to build a barn, be able to buy a farm. This is not the program for that. Fortunately, WSDA does have an infrastructure grant program. That is a great tie-in with this, is to go get an infrastructure grant through WSDA, and maybe Emily, you could put the link for that in there. That is open right now, to buy that cold storage that you need, or that wash pack area, or that delivery truck. But don't try to add those things into your value added producer grant. We all, that is what we all want, but that's not what this is for, right? This is for marketing, advertising, for expanding your markets, selling your product to more people and more places. Just keep that in mind. I am going to produce more of whatever this is and sell it to more people and more places and bring more revenue back to my farm. And that is the purpose of this. This is a program that's been around for a while. I don't see it going away anytime soon. I think every Congress critter out there wants to be able to brag and say that they helped save the family farm. They brought jobs into the rural economy. This is one way that happens, is through this grant program. It is a highly competitive process. It is challenging to write these grant applications well and get them funded. I can speak to personal experience of not having everything that I write funded. You have to be able to tell your story in a compelling and convincing way, and spend the time to make sure that they understand what it is that you want to do and why what you want to do will be successful. Okay. Yes, so going back to the purpose of this is to help agricultural producers. So if you are not somebody who is involved in the day-to-day work of running a farm, this is not the grant for you. That you need to be an agricultural producer by definition. You have to be involved in running the farm and being in some capacity out in the field and managing the resources. You can't be a landowner who owns a farm, out in Michigan, and you just reap the profits of it. This is not for that person. This is for farmers, and it's for specifically to help producers successfully process, market, and sell their value-added products. So I always draw that line in the sand. Once it's harvested, in my case, with the retired laying hens turned into soup stock. Once they're no longer a live chicken, they are now a retired laying hen who is, and all the expenses involved and everything that happens to them after that until the time that it's a packaged broth product that's on the shelf. Those are the things that are eligible for the expense. With the case with the bagged compost, it was once the poop is out of the chicken and out of the coop, so now it's been harvested out of the chicken coop, all of the time and expenses involved into that becoming compost and in a bag and put in a truck and sold are eligible. And then with the egg example, the buying the chickens, the feeding the chickens, the tending the chickens, none of that counts. Once the egg is out of the chicken and into the wash pack area, that's when the clock starts on processing, marketing, and selling that value-added product. Okay. You have to show that you're going to expand the market for you as an agricultural producer. You cannot just say, we're just going to continue to sell to the same people we've always sold to. This is about expanding your market for your value-added product, and it's to strengthen rural economies. Okay. So now I would like to devote the rest of our time to questions for me or for Jeff or anyone else who is here who can answer questions. And we have some wonderful people here from WSDA as well as from rural development who can answer your questions. Let's see. So Jude asked, are these business plans eligible versus third party? And I'm not quite sure what that's in reference to. Jude, could you ask that question out loud? Maybe it's just, does it need to be done by a qualified third-party professional? And the answer is no. You can produce your own business plan. Business Impact Northwest and NABC are also great resources. SCORE is another great resource for having somebody who will work with you to develop a business plan. But it is something that you can do on your own. It is only that feasibility study. Because a feasibility study is this a viable product? Is this an idea that's going to work? And USDA's idea is, of course, you think it's going to work because you're the one who wants to do it. But does somebody agree with you? Is there somebody who is a qualified third-party professional who also sees this as something that can be successful? Your business plan is you telling your story to audiences such as funders in order to tell who you are and why you do what you do and how you're going to plan to be successful. Do we have a handy budget spreadsheet template? The answer for that is yes. I used to use a handy budget spreadsheet template, but the portal is so much better than that. It is great. You enter in, here's how much labor is going to cost. I'm going to need to hire somebody for 1,000 hours, at 8 hours a week for so many weeks to be out at the farmer's market at this dollar rate. You total all that up and you put it into the portal, and it's like, oh, okay, well now it'll total all of your different expenses up. It is so much better than all the spreadsheets that I used to do. So use the portal to build your budget. You could build it in Excel on your own first if you want to, but once you get access to the portal, it's just such a great way to do it. Who is the best contact for producer group questions? So if you're involved in a producer group, there's those 3 different kinds of producer groups, whether it's a co-op or a majority-owned producer group, or I can't remember what the third one was. I would say call one of these rural development people. Jeff, who would you say they should call?
You can call any of us on the very next page there, or I guess it was at the end of my presentation.
Yeah, let me go back to that.
Yeah, there's a list. There's 5 of us that all kind of do the same thing throughout the state. Yeah, you know, mine is fine. I think I think those basic requirements, you first kind of, I would ask yourself those questions about, you know, who within that group, do they all have to be agricultural producers, or, you know, there's different boxes there that need to be checked to fall into one of those. And then certainly let's get a dialogue going. What do you have in mind, so we can, you know, try and see if they're, you know, if that's a path that, you know, somebody wants to pursue. Yeah, um, so they just, and these are fine. We definitely, you know, we'll work on any of these. They're just not as common. So be patient with us, of course. I might not be able to just rattle off an answer to that. So having some background, knowing what your organization is, it's important to know who makes up that organization. That seems to be, you know, all the kinds of things that they care about when looking to see if this is an eligible organization. I feel like I've heard of folks applying for this and getting to the finish line didn't happen because some little piece of that didn't work, because, you know, half the people didn't have anything to do with farming and they were just owners within the organization. I don't know which one that was, but there's kind of nuances to each one of those special categories that you want to vet out, to make sure that that has a viable path. I guess I'd put it that way. So yeah, any of those names, emails, direct them to us. Um, and I think Micah put up the VAPG, the reg, the CFR. And I think if you even just go into that, and if you're interested in one of those 5 categories, word search that, you know, control F and see where that takes you, and get a good feel if that, just from an eligibility standpoint, notwithstanding all the things that you'd like your organization to be able to do, find out if you're in the right box there before you go too far down that road. Yeah, and we'll help you figure that out. I just, answering questions, shooting from the hip on that one's dangerous for me, because I always need to look at it. You know, and I'll say this, Melissa. I mean, we went through a lot of stuff today, and you know, there was a couple times there I know I had a mouthful of marbles, because it can be complicated. This program was not, it was put together in a manner that has, it should be not easy always to get a grant. You really, it's very specific in what its mission is, and in such that, you need to meet a lot of these kind of special requirements and very specific uses of funds. And compared to the other grants we administered, it is one of the more difficult, but it's certainly doable. But you very well might need some help from us. I know Melissa offers a wonderful service here. We're going to be a resource too. So, you know, it takes a village. So, we can help you, guide you down that. Just get started early, please. And so, you know, those little hurdles along the way and questions you might have, you can feel better about when you start having us look at, hey, take a look at this. You know, what can we do to make this better? Or am I missing something here? It's great that we're doing this early, and I think there's going to be some other opportunities I'll let Melissa speak to. Even without, you know, more webinars, you have our names there. If you got something you want to kick the tires on, we get busy with a lot of stuff. Right now, we're trying to finish up our fiscal year, but we'll get back to you and answer answer your questions.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. So up on the screen is my contact information. Sorry about the screen scrolling there. But to get back to my spot, that's how to get a hold of me. I'm happy to chat with anybody who, if you have questions about whether you think you have a good project, if you're looking for help with NABC, there are resources at NABC as well as other organizations who are willing to help you get through these. I do work one-on-one with clients, and I offer a free half-hour consultation to go over your application idea to see if it would be a good fit to have me help you, or I can help you access other resources to do that. I do want to thank all of the people who helped to fund this. This was funded with a federal grant, as well as many private organizations who support the work of NABC and help us keep helping farmers be successful in their operation. There is an evaluation form that Emily has put a link to. Please fill that out. I would really appreciate that. Again, that's something that goes back to the people who fund these presentations so that we can continue to do them and they can see how valuable and helpful these are for people. Any other questions? Anyone want to kind of talk a little bit about what you're thinking of for applying for this grant, or ask specific questions while you have this group of people here who have a lot of knowledge? I'm so appreciative of all the rural development people who are here in the room today. No questions? Okay. Yeah. I would say start early, apply for this. If you are a farmer, a rancher, a fisher, a harvester, an agricultural producer of any kind, and you are selling food locally, you are producing a value-added product already and are eligible for this grant program. It is such a valuable program for farmers. To me, it is the closest thing to free money that's out there to help people farm. This is really about food security, national security. The more food that we can source locally and provide for our neighbors, the better off we all are, right? We'll eat healthier. And I want to see farmers thrive and survive. But when I say farmers, I mean all of us, farmers, ranchers, fishers, and harvesters. That's just a lot to say. So let's see. Herb N says, I grow peppers. I make pepper sauce. I sell at Pike Place Market direct to customers. I want to expand into wholesale, boutique shops, restaurants, and grocery stores. Would this be a good fit? Absolutely. Apply. Yes.
Nailed it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that is exactly it. You want to expand your markets. You're doing a value-added product. You're selling it locally, and you're changing the state with the pepper sauce. You're wanting to reach new customers. You're wanting to sell more pepper sauce to more people in more places and bring more revenue back to the farm. Yeah.
Yeah, and just being specific, take that a step further. What are you trying to get into a restaurant chain, or you know, start really thinking about not you know, if it's super abstract, it's a little harder for somebody to see it as being viable. But when you get down to really what identifying those markets and what that means in terms of revenue and all those kinds of things. Do you have enough space to grow those peppers? All that kind of the you're writing your own feasibility study in an explanation of this. You're gonna that's the whole thing with those emerging grants we talked about. Somebody else is kind of helping support your idea. When this is a working capital, it's market expansion, you're telling that story. So that's a very, I'm not gonna say it's a typical project or a project like I'm discounting as, oh, that's boring, that won't score well. It's one of the ones that score well are ones that really make sense, are fairly simple actually. The more convoluted it gets and we start kind of losing yourself, and I know as scoring them myself, it's sometimes it's the simplest ones that I go, wow, yeah, it's all there. You know, let's rock and roll. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and like Micah pointed out in the chat, this is a nationally competitive program. There isn't a certain amount of money set aside for each state. The way these work is that every application is scored, and the highest scoring winner, whoever has the highest score, is funded first, and they go down the line, funding them until they run out of money. So it is possible that Washington State could get all of the money. That's not going to happen. But if we have really great applications coming in, we have a higher, the better your score is, the better your chance. So I definitely encourage you to apply. Another thing that came up in the chat that I did want to bring up is with the sam.gov. Don't just stop at the first step. So there's the first initial step where they say, okay, we'll get back to you after we check your, TIN number, I think it is. Then you have to log back into sam.gov and finish the registration process. And that's super important for being able to get funded. If you don't do all of that, you will not be able to receive the money. So make sure so much of this is the details. Follow the details. Follow the information, not just in the sam.gov, but in the application portal itself. Any examples they give you are examples they think are really good. So take those, reword those for yourself, answer every single question, even if it doesn't feel relevant for you. We want to have an answer to every single thing that they bring up. Otherwise, you might lose points and not get funded.
And we can also check if your SAM registration is active. So if you have any questions on that, reach out and we'll verify that for you.
Yeah.
and Melissa, I don't want to get off of this without saying, we appreciate the opportunity to give us a platform to sell our wares to. Anytime I can get a chance to just, talk about this stuff, we like what we do. We love working with farmers. I mean, if it didn't come across, I didn't do my job. Every one of us here, we like this program. We enjoy working with our customers. You're our peeps. So, but really appreciate the opportunity for us to talk today, and feel free to reach out, any of you, if there's anything we can help you figure out, or we're there.
Yeah, and thank you for taking the time to be here, Jeff and Lucas and Micah. Yeah, I hope all the farmers who are present still recognize that these are people who are here to help us. They are here to help farmers. This is not a regulatory agency that's out to patrol what you're doing on your farm. They're here to help you access grant money and other resources to help you grow your farm. So thank you. Thank you for doing this with me. It's always such a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks,
Okay.
all.
Yeah, thank you all for being here. I think that's probably all we'll do today. Please do make sure you fill out that evaluation form. Emily posted that again. Again, that really helps NABC make sure that we can continue to offer these. We do have another webinar for the VAPG program coming up on October 30th. So if you know anyone who missed this, this is recorded, but if they would prefer to attend a live version, we will be doing it again on October 30th. Bring your questions then. If you get started on an application and want to chat about where you're at with it, come to that webinar as well. And we'll just look forward to hearing from anyone who's interested in pursuing an application and looking for NAB's help to do that. Yeah. And then Emily, if you could make sure you get all of those links that different people put in the chat, those were all really helpful that we could send out to the people who registered for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I will. The chat is downloadable, so I'll be sure to include those in some kind of document form when I follow
Awesome.
up.
Great. Good. Okay.